So we've been looking at the subject of the great I ams that Jesus claims to be in the New Testament, and we have been looking for the last few weeks at this I am, where Jesus makes the statement, "I am the light of the world," and we've been looking at it in the context of the theology of light. Last week, Jason asked the question, which I think was a very good question. As a matter of fact, a far better question than usually I ask, concerning why it was that in the creation story there was not a complete dispelling of the darkness. You recall in the book of Genesis, I'm just going to read this quickly. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening and there was morning one day. A few points, I think, that are important here by both highlight and contrast. First, this creation of light is essentially a statement of God's existence. This is not the creation of the sun and the moons and so forth. This is a statement of God's creation. When it says God said, "Let there be light," I think an equivalent statement would be God said, "I am the light," or Jesus said, "I am the light of the world." This is a foundational statement concerning the nature of God. But we see that before God proclaims his lightness or his brightness, or proclaims this creative act of demonstrating light, that there is darkness over the face of the earth. And yet God is moving in the darkness, it says. He's moving over the surface of the water, the surface of the deep, the darkness, and so forth. Which is, again, a bit of a puzzling question. Why is the surface dark? Why is God moving there? And why has he not yet, until this moment, declared light? So these are, I think, reasonable questions to ask. The next question is, why, when he decides to dispel the darkness and to create light, does he not eliminate all of the darkness? We see this particularly if we fast forward to the new heaven and the new earth. So in the garden restored, there is no darkness. We see that in Revelation 21. I just want to read a few of these passages. Revelation 21, verses 1 to 6. "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea." Notice that the sea is gone as well. Then I heard a throne saying, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. He shall dwell with them, and he shall wipe away every tear from their eye. There should be no more death. There should be no more mourning," and so forth and so on. And then it talks about him being the Alpha and the Omega. It continues in chapter 22, "And he showed me the river of water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the middle of the street and on either side of the river was the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding fruit for every month, and the leaves of the trees were for the healing of nations. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be, and there shall be no longer," verse 5, "any night, and they shall not have need of the light of a lamp, nor the light of the sun, because the Lord shall illuminate them, and they shall reign forever and ever." So in the new earth, we see that the light, which was created at the beginning, but did not dispel all the darkness, now dispels all of the darkness. So this is one major change between the new earth, or the garden restored, and the garden as it was before. But there's something else that's also different about this garden, and we've mentioned this, I think, in the past, and that is that in the earth restored, there is no tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The tree of knowledge of good and evil found in the original garden is not found in the garden restored. We see the tree of life there, which is also in the garden. We see it bifurcated onto both sides of the river. So there's two trunks, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is not there. Now we have called this tree of knowledge of good and evil several things. We've called it the tree of disobedience, because this is where Eve eats of the fruit in violation of the prohibition placed by God. This is the tree that we've called the tree of the law, as you recall. And I'd like to suggest, and we've called it the tree of free will. I'd like to now suggest that this may be the tree of darkness, because its removal is associated with no more night. Now, there are many things that God says about the darkness, and in terms of descriptive of passages, and I want to read a few of those today. The first one is in 1 John 5, verse 1 John 1, verse 5. 1 John 1, verse 5. And this is the message we have heard from him and announced to you, that God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. In Psalms 139, I'm going to try to build a point that I want you to respond to. David will say that it's way too complicated, and he's probably right. But it just seemed to come to my mind as I was thinking about it this week. In Psalm 139, verse 7, 139, verse 7, where can I go from thy spirit, or where can I flee from thy presence? If I ascend to heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in Sheol, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the dawn, if I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, even there thy hand will lead me, and thy right hand will lay hold of me. If I say, surely the darkness will overwhelm me, and the light around me will be night, even the darkness is not dark to thee, and the night is as bright as the day, and darkness and light are alike to thee. So here we see that God seems to have no darkness at all. But in another sort of paradoxical way, lightness and darkness are synonymous. In Daniel chapter 2, there's another statement about God and darkness. Verse 2:22. This is in the context of Nebuchadnezzar's forgotten dream, and in this lead up to the explanation of the dream, Daniel says this in 2 verse 22. It is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. So he knows what's in the darkness. He is familiar with the darkness. He seems to have some presence and operational ability in the darkness, but for some reason, he does not, in the creation story, dispel all of the darkness. This is the sort of conundrum, I think, at least in my mind. And one more passage in Isaiah, verse 45. Chapter 45. Verse 7, I think we shared this this last week. I am the Lord, and there is no other, the one forming light and creating darkness, causing well-being and creating calamity. I am the Lord who does all these things. So it shouldn't be surprising, I suppose, that he is comfortable with the darkness, in that he's making the claim here that he is the creator of darkness. And in this notion of being the creator of darkness, I'd like to look at it as not a positive act, but a negative act, meaning that he creates darkness by not shedding light. He creates darkness by evacuating light, by not putting light into the situation. The situation is dark. And as these various thoughts were sort of percolating through my mind this week, I wondered if it's possible, as I said, that this darkness, which he says is created, is, as I mentioned, simply a matter of leaving something undisturbed, leaving some portion of the cosmos unexposed to his light, that there is some vacuation, there is some vacation by God from some part of this that results in this darkness, and that there is a portion of the cosmos, and by the cosmos I mean everywhere, and in a moment I'm going to say within ourselves, which is unpenetrated by the light of God. The question is this: is it possible that that this place of darkness, this unpenetrated, vacuated area of the cosmos, and I don't know how to say it better, and hopefully we'll say it better, is the realm of the free will of mankind, of man, that man's will or free will abides in the place which God vacates himself from. To be sure, he is close by, as was said here. He feels comfortable in the darkness. He knows what's going on in the darkness. But for some reason, he does not turn on the light in this darkness in an attempt to provide an opportunity, a place in the scheme for man to exercise free will. By withholding this revelatory light, he honors the free will of man. Notice, however, that this darkness, along with the tree of darkness, is not found in the new heaven and the new earth, which indicates to me that willfully bad choices will not again occur in the new heaven and the new earth. That is to say, sin will not arise a second time, because we do not see in the new heaven and the new earth darkness in the cosmos in any place. And therefore, if free will occupies or operates within this area evacuated by God's presence, or by his light, let's put it that way, then there will be no opportunity for free will. Verse in Isaiah 65, verse 17, "For behold, I create a new heaven and a new earth, and the former things shall not be remembered or come to mind." Notice that part of the new creation is a leaving behind whatever else was there. But more than that, they shall build homes, verse 20, and they shall inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards, and they shall eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For as the lifetime of a tree, so shall be the days of my people, and my chosen ones shall wear out the work of their hands. This implies a permanence in the new heaven and the new earth that is not subject to failure as a result of willfully bad choice making. I don't think God could have said this of the first adventure in the garden, because it would be possible that Adam and Eve built something that they could not completely occupy, that they started something, growing something that they could not bring to fruition. So This seems to be, again, the idea that free will in the new heaven and the new earth will be gone. But a little bit more about this subject of darkness. In John chapter 3, I think this was mentioned recently as well, we see that darkness is closely linked to judgment, which again goes along with some kind of decision-making properties and more to be discussed, but again, trying to share with you just thoughts going through my mind. For God so loved the world, verse 16, John 3, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send the Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world should be saved through him. He who believes in him is not judged, but he who has not believed in him has been judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And this is the judgment, that light has come into the world, and men love the darkness rather than the light, for the deeds were evil. For everyone who does evil hates the light, and does not come to the light, lest his deeds should be exposed. But he who practices the truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be manifest in having been wrought in God. So here we see the contrast between man's will and God's will. Man's will operates in the darkness and seeks to recede to the darkness, not only perhaps once, but maybe even repetitively. God's will operates in the light, and as we've talked about before, it is possible, we've considered this as a possibility, that the only free will that man legitimately has is to place that free will into the hands of God and to give it over to God. What we see here is the association of darkness, I think, with free will or with man's will. God in the beginning seems to create a cosmos where there is freedom to reject God. And why he does this is very puzzling to me. It's puzzling because if I were to say to most people who at least fear God, would you like to be in a position where you will always do God's will all the time, every time? Most people, I would certainly say yes, please make me that way. But God doesn't do that. He gives us this opportunity to go our own way. When light is suspended and separated from the darkness, why not dispel the entire darkness? Why make a place, why preserve a place where there is this voluntary evacuation or vacation of light that God himself sort of imposes upon himself? As I mentioned, to be sure, he created this vacuated space, and it certainly seems to indicate that he knows what's going on in that vacuated space. But for some reason, why he doesn't flip the light on is the part that I think blends, at least in my thinking, into this concept of free will. He sets up the conditions of sight also such that it's easier to walk in the light than it is in darkness. Notice that most of us see better in light. I mean, we don't have infrared vision, and when things are really dark, we have difficulty moving around. I think in the spiritual sense, he sets it up this way as well, and yet he leaves this one vacuated darkness as a possibility. It is easier to walk in the light than it is in darkness, and it's also true that I think most of mankind has a natural fear of darkness. So in the creation, it's as if he sets mankind up for success in the light, puts him in a position where it's easier to be in the light. It seems like it's more logical and it's more natural to be in the light, and yet the darkness, the exploration of this darkness is still present. But there's something that's, I think, even potentially more powerful, at least in my thinking, and now I'm sure David will think I've really gone off the rails, and that is that in this creation that we see at the very beginning, we see a cycle of light and darkness. So it's not that the darkness and the light are either constant on one side or the other, but there's something cyclical. The cyclical nature of this light and darkness shows that even if we choose the darkness, light is just around the corner. Just as predictable as the day follows night, so predictably God's grace and his graciousness follows our own path into the darkness. Like the changing of the day and night cycle, which is not controllable by us. Whether you like it or not, the day is going to turn into night, the night is going to turn into day. So it is that grace cannot be stopped, it cannot be hastened, it cannot be controlled. No matter what you wish to do with it, it's going to come whether you like it or not. And as little as you can change the day-night cycle, you have also the opportunity over and over and over again to be reached out to by the graciousness of God. If you're in the darkness, don't be despairing because the dawn will break. If you're in the darkness, don't be despairing because grace is coming right around the corner, whether you want it or not. But it's not that grace overpowers or that light overpowers the darkness. You still have the opportunity to retreat back into darkness, even if you wish. Because, again, the cyclical nature of the light and darkness always gives you the opportunity to go one way or the other. It always gives you the opportunity to head toward the light or head toward the darkness. And the power to do that does not eliminate this concept of free will. If you choose, as I said, you can head back into the darkness again. And of course, that's what John 3 says here. This is the judgment, that the light has come to the world, but people wanted to continue to retreat into the darkness whenever they had that possibility. So this light that we're talking about is the supernatural light that was manifested at the Mount of Transfiguration. It is a transforming kind of light. It is light which is seen also not only at the Transfiguration but at the tomb when Jesus is resurrected, and the light overcomes the soldiers at the gate. And this light again follows the darkness which covers the earth when Jesus is crucified. So we see again this motif of lightness and darkness, this cyclical thing associated with now Jesus making a free will choice to follow God and bringing the light back. We cannot, we cannot go into the darkness, or God cannot go into the darkness and it remain that way unless he somehow, and this is what I'm interested in your thoughts about today, in within the concept of free will, continues to vacate himself from this light. He by vacating this space of our will creates a darkness that allows us to flee into it if that's what we wish. But it's also reassuring to know that this cyclical nature of lightness and darkness that is part of this very fundamental, sustaining, foundational aspect of creation that we see in the first part of the book of Genesis, is such that we can pursue walking in the light if that's what we wish to do. Back to Psalms, just one more verse. Psalms 139 again. Excuse me. in verse in verse 12, as I said, even the darkness is not dark to thee, and the night is as bright as the day. Darkness and light are alike. So in a sense, we see the possibility that God can operate in the darkness, even as it allows us to demonstrate or to operate our free will. So this again was some thoughts that came to my mind as we were talking about this, contrasting the garden experience and the story of creation and the preservation of some darkness with the concept of the new earth where there is no night. And how do you see the concept, or is it just a completely crazy concept, that somehow for us to have this free will, for us to have this kind of operational choice, that there has to be this preservation or evacuation of the light of God. One of the things that occurred to me, and I think, again, depending on our discussion today, there are several places in the scriptures where you see God not evacuating the light, or not leaving darkness. For example, as the children of Israel come out of Egypt to the promised land, this is operated and controlled entirely by His light. Light by night as a pillar of fire, and a cloud by day. We see that that in the Urim and Thummim, where the high priest interrogates God concerning issues of His people, there's not a question of this is free will. If the Urim and Thummim show this is what needs to occur. So we see Saul on the road to Damascus overcome by light in a way which I think is a complete suspension of his free will, or at least if it's not a complete suspension, it's the strongest possible push away from free will. I don't know how, if you're on the road and you get knocked off by a huge light that then starts talking to you, why are you doing this to me? That this becomes an opportunity to sort of say, well, I think I'd like to exercise my free will. It doesn't seem like at the moment free will is very operational, is the point I'm making. And there are many other places and stories where it seems as if free will is suspended or it's not operational. And yet here we see the idea that there is a place where God vacuates His light, leaves a certain kind of darkness, even though it may be cyclical, not everlasting darkness, but darkness which is followed by gracious opportunity to again walk in the light. Your thoughts on the subject of light and darkness, and particularly your thoughts about the issue and the notion of free will.